So now let's get started here with Rahu. During Rahu, she met her high school boyfriend, and we can see here that Rahu is in the first house, which is the 7th from the 7th, and it is in its own sign dignity because of its Lord Mercury and can manifest a relationship right away in Rahu. And it particularly happened in Rahu Ketu. You can see here that Ketu is in the 7th house and has a relationship agenda as well. Now, considering that this relationship started in Rahu, the chances are very slim that this relationship is going to be stable and lasting. Usually whatever gets started in Rahu is just not going to last for very long. Next came Rahu Jupiter. Now we can see here that Rahu and Jupiter are in a 6A position and can cause a breakup. At that time, she and her boyfriend graduated from high school, and after graduation she had a clear plan. She wanted to move away and start a business, but he had different ideas about what he wanted to do, and he didn't want to follow her. And so in the end, she made the decision to break up the relationship. We can see here that Jupiter does not aspect Rahu and is not able to protect and maintain the relationship. Instead, it rules the 7th house of partnerships in Ketu, the planet of karmic endings. And so in Rahu Jupiter, she left her boyfriend to pursue her own path. Now we can also see here that Jupiter is conjunct the 5th cusp, and so during Rahu Jupiter she preferred a casual relationship approach over making a commitment. At this point she wasn't really interested in settling down with a guy. In fact, she did meet someone during her travels. We can also see that Jupiter rules the 9th house of foreign travels. But once she returned home, she just let the connection fade and chose not to continue pursuing it. During Rahu Saturn, she continued dating, but didn't enter a serious relationship. Now at first glance, this might come as a surprise. Saturn is exalted in the D7, and Saturn has a relationship agenda because it rules the Dharaka moon. It also rules the Karaka of marriage, and it is also here placed in the 7th from the Karaka Jupiter. And as an exalted planet, it can also here manifest a relationship. So Saturn here should be able to give something nice, right? So where is the issue? Well, we can see that Saturn and Rahu, they are in a 2-12 position, which can make relationships feel too much of a sacrifice. Still, Saturn is exalted and should bring a worthwhile relationship despite some sacrifices that needed to be made. So why couldn't you find a good match? Well, in one of my courses I teach the importance of Parivartana Yoga, which is the effects of planetary interchange. And whenever you see an interchange in a Varga, you know that it's going to make the Varga dramatically better or worse, depending on what kind of interchange it is. Any interchange involving Saturn is going to be challenging. It's similar to a Saturn conjunction. It means the person has karmic baggage tied to that planet, and they have to work through some heavy lessons with that planet. And that's also why Saturn delays. It brings experiences that are painful and sometimes too much for the person to deal with in the moment, and so they tend to postpone or hold out for a better future. And so in Rahu Saturn, she was unlucky and disappointed with the guys that she met. The men just weren't what she was looking for, and deep down she never believed that any of those relationships would last. And so aside from the 212 position of Saturn and Rahu, the interchange of Saturn with Venus made it practically impossible for her to get involved in a relationship. It would have been too much of a burden and compromise for her. Now her hope returned when she entered Rahu Mercury. Mercury is the ruler of Rahu, and it's in its own sign, Gemini, and in the 10th house, and becomes a powerful manifester. And so during this time, she met someone and fell in love at first sight. And for the first in a long while, she felt serious and genuinely invested in a relationship. Right? There was a sense of clarity, and that something meaningful could finally take root. But then Rahu Ketu followed, and she got restless and impatient with her boyfriend. Ketu is conjunct the 7th house and points towards detachment and a lack of emotional connection in the relationship. Ketu's Lord Jupiter is in the 8th house of sudden changes and transformation, and to make matters worse, Jupiter here is also aspected only by this waning moon, who is placed in the 6th house. And so she felt increasingly dissatisfied in the relationship. And so during Rahu Ketu, there came a point where she could no longer continue on, and she left her boyfriend. But then still, during the same Rahu Ketu, she got involved with someone else. The theme of moving in and out of relationships continued throughout Rahu Dasha. Rahu is here ruled by Mercury in Gemini, who is also here in the 10th house, and gave her the ability to attract and start new relationships easily. But then Rahu is in the 1st house and in Virgo, and is making her unreliable and overly judgmental as a partner. And so while Rahu's Lord Mercury in Gemini is restless and curious and constantly seeking new experiences, Rahu in the 1st house is disrupting the relationships. And then there's also the influence of Mars here as well, who is conjunct Mercury. Mars is also here the 8th lord of breaks and disruptions as well. And so as quickly as she falls in love and wants to spend the rest of her life with her new boyfriend, once the spark fades and the routine sets in again, she quickly loses interest. And when that excitement dies down, then she moves on. Now Rahu is the planet of growth, and it is here in the 1st house. And so every time she enters a relationship, it triggers a period of intense personal transformation. But as she evolves, she tends to outgrow her partner. She changes so much that she feels like she can no longer relate to her partner, and this makes it then impossible to stay. And so inevitably, after some time, after a few months or a year or two, she finds herself needing a new relationship that reflects the person that she has become. And in general, wherever Rahu gets involved, we need to experience the extremes of that area to understand what it's all about. And so Rahu connected to the 1st house means that she needs to experience the limits of who she is in a partnership. And she does that by getting exposed to guys from all sorts of backgrounds. And by getting to know different types of people, she can eventually find out who she truly is. Rahu Venus is always an important relationship period, and mostly not in a positive way. 75% of relationships end during this time, particularly when Venus is afflicted, but in general this is a very challenging time in relationships in general. And so you can assume when a person is in Rahu Venus that they're really going through a tough time in their relationship. So here Venus is not aspected or conjunct any planet. However, Venus is interchanged with Saturn. And as you remember, during Rahu Saturn, they were very unlucky in their love life, right? They were single throughout Rahu Saturn. And now in Rahu Venus, they went through a breakup. And interestingly enough, after their breakup, which was in Rahu Venus Saturn, this was the time when they started a new relationship. And so when we just look at these three planets who are involved, we can quickly understand that this is not going to be a good relationship, right? Rahu, Venus, Saturn. So Venus here gets squeezed from both sides by Rahu and Saturn. And so she quickly got into a new relationship, but this was a way to get over the pain of her breakup. This is technically actually called a rebound relationship. A person gets into a new relationship to forget their sorrow from a previous breakup, but once they calm down and they got some relief, then the relationship usually stops. And for them, the breakup actually happened in Rahu Sun. The Sun is a minor separator, but here it also rules the 12th house from Rahu, and so it becomes a bigger separator. The Sun also rules the 6th house of challenges and breakups. And so during Rahu Sun, she separated from her boyfriend. The Sun here also rules the 2nd house, and she focused a lot on her job and making money, and didn't get into a new relationship during Rahu Sun. What happened during Rahu Moon? The Moon is possibly the least connected to Rahu, and nothing significant happened in her love life. And finally comes Rahu Mars. Rahu Mars is always a frustrating time. Rahu creates unrealistic expectations, and Mars rules our will and energy. And so much of what we aspire for in Rahu Mars never materializes. And for her, this was a very frustrating time in her love life. Relationships didn't go anywhere, and she ended Rahu Dasha as a single woman.